Here, thank you to you candidates for coming out to see the process. Today is a significant day in terms of the November election. Really, things have kicked off. You can see by the activity outside this room, everything that's going on. This is unique this year because of the special session and the legislation that was passed. We were able to start the process in terms of handling the huge volume of absentees early. So we've begun this morning the opening process. That's what's taking place outside this room. And then in here, beginning this evening, we will actually start scanning the absentee ballots. The machines behind me here are the actual machines that scan and read the images of the ballots. The central equipment here behind James will be walking through most of this here in just a minute. These are kind of the brains of the operation. This is where the actual results are read and tallied. This is our most secure room and secure space. It's worth noting none of the equipment in this room is ever connected to the internet. It's part of our security measures to make sure. So when you see results on election night, it's because we've removed them from this equipment, gone out and uploaded them to the internet. There is at no point a connection, just to protect the integrity of this process. And in terms of integrity, today is really the opportunity to test and make sure all the equipment is working properly before the election begins. So the absentee ballots will all be scanned on these. These are our central counters for the absentees. Then also at early voting in the polls, we also have a precinct scanner. It operates basically the same. They're both scanning. They both have the same logic written into them. And today we're testing the logic and the accuracy of the equipment. So we're basically making sure a vote for candidate A goes to candidate A, a vote for candidate B goes to candidate B. And the way we test that is we have a test deck of predetermined results. So we've already gone through and marked a test deck of ballots that with a certain number of votes, so candidate A gets 1 vote, candidate B gets 2 votes, candidate C gets 3 votes. We've done that for every single race on the ballot, for every legislative district, each of the highway districts, every variance of the ballot. We have tested all of those leading up to this, but today's the chance. We'll run the test deck and then make sure that the results that we prescribed at the beginning are the results that we get at the end. Once this process is done, we will clear out the machines and zero everything out so there are no votes on any of the machines or the equipment. And then later this evening, after some additional training for our staff who will be running the scanners, we will begin the scanning process. And we will be scanning, we'll have 2 shifts of workers every day headed towards election day, coming in and scanning from 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. at night in order to handle such a huge volume and to get the votes out so that on election night, we anticipate we should have results at a roughly normal time because of all the work that has to be done. That's the real significant change. It was always going to take this much work. It was just a question of do we do the work now or do we do the work after the election and everyone has to wait a week to get results. And so we're very thankful to be able to be doing this now. I'm going to turn it over from here to James. James is our Deputy Elections Director. He oversees this process and has worked through the equipment to make sure it's all programmed accurately, and he's kind of the master, the maestro of all these machines behind me. So he'll walk through this entire testing procedure. At the end, when we're done, if anyone has questions, we're happy to answer questions about any of the process. We want this to be as transparent as possible. And speaking of which, I should note, throughout the course of this week, as we're doing this, we are streaming live to adacountyelections.com. You'll notice there's cameras in both of the corners here in this room. We are streaming live on the internet right now. We'll be doing that. We're also recording all this information, both what happens in here as well as what happens out there where the opening process is. We've got multiple cameras so anybody can watch from the comfort of their home the process that we're going through. Everything to make sure people have confidence in the results when they're done on election night. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, James, to kind of kick off the LNA.
All right, thank you very much, Phil. Like it was mentioned, we're going to test the different machines we use to count the ballots. Phil mentioned we'll use the precinct scanners, we'll use the central scanners. We've broken up this test deck to cover all 3 voting types, absentee, early, and election day. We do have all the different combinations represented. So it's a really good representation of everything that the voters will be voting on and have been. We're going to start by having Clint start feeding ballots into the scanner just like a voter would at a precinct. While he does that, Saul and I are going to start the precinct scanners and get this going. We have just short of 1,000 ballots in our test deck. So it'll take a couple of minutes, but with 8 machines, it won't seem like that much time at all. Let's get going. With these machines, one of the first things we'll do is we'll print out a 0 report. Again, affirming that there are no votes recorded, there's 0 data on this. printer's warming up. Okay, I'll show you 0 votes. All the machines have their counters reset, so the scanners, when we start them, will be zeroed out. From here, we'll start running the ballots through and start building up our results. Sounds good. So one thing that's different is we're running 2 systems now. We increased our scanning capacity in this room. So everything we do, we have to do twice.
And those are actual ballots?
They're test ballots.
Okay.
Everything about them looks the same, but they're all marked. Really voting.
And so we'll be able to look into that similarly to what we did.
Yeah.
You guys look out a little bit on the other on that. So those now. No. So one so that receiving everything in that earlier thing.
Part of our process in here is every time we run a batch through, we're verifying there are no rejected ballots, that everything was read properly, and it's witnessed. You have someone else confirm your work. That's going to be really important when we have twice as many machines going, is having a lot of oversight so that we make sure we're verifying each other's work. And we only want to save batches that are free of rejects so you get good sound numbers.
So what would happen if you did encounter a reject?
So there are a couple things. If the ballots truly fail and it won't go through the scanner, we have a duplication process where we can get that duplicated and then scanned. If it's something like the barcode is obstructed, if a corner gets folded, if something for some reason it's gotten written on by a voter, it can't pick it up. Some things we can correct and we can run it through. We do try to run through the machine and duplicate it as a matter of last resort. But any ballots we voted, we will get counted.
Okay. So if will we be able to count ballots in advance, or is this only after polls close on election day?
Say that again?
So will the ballots only be tabulated after polls close on election day, or do you do any of that counting in advance?
Can't do anything in advance. All the counting will be completed Tuesday evening, the 3rd, after polls close at 9 p.m. And that's when we'll have our first results shortly thereafter. And then when the precinct scanners start coming in, then you'll start to see that start to increment throughout the evening. Now, get the whole number.
Thank you.
automatically kick it out?
Say that again?
If a ballot is rejected, does the machine automatically kick it out?
It does, and then we can go through and identify what the issue was and try to resolve it here, and then scan it in.
Okay.
I think that's our office, that's one of the biggest challenges. When you're in, and you probably already know this, when you're inside here, it feels different. Especially Chelsea and I are always interacting with people on the outside and trying to monitor how experience is. Just how important, even just being on the camera, so people watch you. You choose what you do. Yeah.
So this first one was one, and then I went through the second.
Are those even asleep?
Okay, so as it finishes, what are you marking down here?
So just like a scanner operator, I'm logging the batch number, the number of sheets, number of ballots, and making a notation if there was an issue, if someone was rejected. The biggest thing about logging this is you're tracking your work, but if for some reason you have to go backwards, it really helps you be able to go back and find something. That coupled with having the second person verifying your work really reduces the likelihood for errors. So it's a really nice process. And then you can go back and really recreate steps you took, make sure that you're on track and haven't missed something.
Quick question, Andrews. From 86 So we were just looking at this because we have a multiple sheet. These ones are slightly different. So it's just talking about that. You can see that there's also
So this is the last of the ballots through here.
That's good.
And then Clint's going to shut down the precinct scanner, just like a chief judge would when the polls are closed. And he'll go through the process where he pulls the B drive, which is just like what we do here on election night when they all come back en masse. And then we'll have multiple B drives. We'll go upload everything. And then we'll check against our known outcomes.
Okay.
Should just be a couple of minutes.
All
We'll
right.
grab a couple of drives. Another thing about these multiple sheet ballots, it's kind of interesting. Because they're images, the transfer time, the time it takes to write that to what we call a B drive, it takes a little bit longer. So we have to figure that out in our estimation of time and planning. And we talk about these late shifts of scanning. Part of it's also data crunching.
Sure. Could you tell us what a V drive is?
It's a hardened USB drive. So the way the vendor delivers them to us, there are security features written into them so that they can take ballots for so much time, and then once they are closed, you cannot add more votes to it. You can only upload them one at a time. So things that prevent you from overcounting votes or prohibiting illegal votes from being accumulated. And again, like everything else, something that's secured, and they're all password protected.
And nothing goes online on the internet. It's
Ever.
all offline on these V drives. Okay. And so everything that's been tabulated on this scanner goes to the V drive, and now you'll extract it to be tabulated.
Correct.
Okay.
We changed the law a few years ago. We will hand count a set, a minimum of 100. We will hand count, run those same
drives.
100 ballots.
Yeah, they're just USB sticks. But they've been hardened and programmed.
As long as that sample's good,
Okay.
if the
Thank you.
sample's bad, we'll hand count everything. We've never been in that situation.
What about power failure? Do you have a redundant system for if somebody flips the switch like what happened
Early voting, yeah, so these computers do have uninterrupted power supply, but they're temporary, so they just power goes up, they stop. The computer's only fine.
And motors will do that for real. You just get one machine.
Yes.
Because that makes a huge difference.
Not just what, it's more.
Okay, and Clint, are you still, you finished feeding the ballots?
I did.
And, so once you're done with that, you shut down basically the polling place?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
But yes, these
The
can-
terminology is to close the polls.
Okay.
And then, yeah, it requires a code to be entered into the machine, and then that locks down the V drive, so votes can't continue to be recorded to the machine once you do that.
Oh, okay. So this is set, and for this test, this mimics what you would see at the polls on election day. And the scanners we saw behind us are like the absentees that would be coming in, and
Yeah,
how we're
correct.
testing
Yeah.
that scanning
Yeah,
process.
that's mostly what they'll be doing is absentees. The other scenario where this type of scanner might be put into
And my
play
other
is
question about security.
if this scanner failed in the precinct.
Our ballots in
Now, you still have a ballot box full of actual ballots.
So, 2 places for your vote.
It's gonna be a whole lot, more in there than what I did today. But if for some reason they didn't get scanned, or that have some reason to suspect the scanner, we can take these out when they come back and scan them through those scanners.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And what is this like receipt right here? Is that
So this,
The entire process.
it'll tell you different things. The scanner, when it initially boots up, it goes through a self-test routine, and it gives you, the different parameters that it checks, gives you the results of that, gives you what election has been programmed into the machine. If you let it, it will give you every single candidate and issue or whatever was on the ballot. It'll give you a count of what that is. And of course, you want to see zeros there. If it's the beginning of the day, if you're first initially opening the polls, you want to see zeros there. And then at the end, and now I haven't closed the polls, but at the end it'll print essentially what you see down here, the number of ballots, the number of sheets, right down here.
oh, okay.
So
All right, so it's kind of an auditing process for okay.
it is just a physical copy of what's electronically recorded.
Inside. Great. All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Most likely.
He's in the State Department.
Yeah. So,
And you do that for State Department and military.
Correct.
If they go through their process.
yes, there's a whole federal process.
It's a federal process.
It is to expedite the travel.
Yeah.
And so, but they still come back. You can come to the instructions on how to mail it back, like this, here's how to make the envelope, back to us. This is what I can code.
They will actually look a little different.
Yeah, okay. They will,
Because they may be printed on a.
it will be like this, but shrunk down, so the boxes will all be smaller and everything. It can't, yeah, no, that's a good question. So it can't be read by one of these.
So he has, those are all handled.
They're duplicated, so,
Duplicated with bigger,
yes, exactly, so starting later, the same thing, we already have
converted to this side.
converted to one.
how many of those do you have?
Oh, we'll have, well, emails isn't a huge number, we probably email 100 maybe, yeah, something like that. But we will have, so we already have a bit more story, as we open them up, coffee stains, tears, whiteout, manifestos.
Oh, yeah. Couple weeks
I'll pull the drive, just like we would here back at the warehouse on election night. And he'll bring in the machine tapes and then the V drive. And we'll go ahead and upload all 3, just like our process would be to upload. We'll be on our way. What I've got right now is our cumulative report, and it's zeroed out again. Again, showing no sheets counted, zeros in all contests. I mean, there's nothing in it. And that's just to confirm that
Okay.
zero data.
So it's blank, and then when we tabulate the results, then we expect to see the numbers.
Right, and that will match up with the printouts we have right there.
Oh, okay.
I just live a couple of miles. Why don't you come on out after? The door house. Older. Her husband. And this is about 9 o'clock.
So the printouts are what you've prepared prior to check to make sure the ballots match.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
The test will be to make sure that's a repeatable result.
Come in, I want to
Okay.
show you.
Same ballots, same machines and programs counting them all the same way every time.
Okay.
I did! Oh no, I feel so embarrassed. Then she called a couple of her neighbors. One of the neighbors keep walking, all elderly ladies. This lady, she comes in and she says, she wants to know who to vote for county, for the highway district, and for the CWI, and judges.
No, I already knew where this was going.
Yeah, ask about judges and CWI. Funny one, then she said, she said, oh, I want you to come down and meet my neighbor. Okay, two doors down. They're buddies. Grabs one door. This elderly lady, and she was oldest in the lot. She comes.
Anything else, or, okay.
She has my flyer. Pull the drive. Bailed out.
Okay, so you close the polls here.
So I close the polls and print out just a little bit more here. It shows the date and time that I closed the polls. And then
Mark it correctly and then sign it.
right up here, the ballot counter, I fed 20 ballots into the machine, 40 sheets, because it's a two-sheet ballot.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
And then at that point, I can go ahead and pull this.
So you pull out the drive, the V drive,
Yeah.
and then the ballots stay in the box.
I had to show you. So, Diane,
Down.
If you get after these with enough gusto, you can.
Oh,
But
right. Okay.
It's kind of a pain.
So this is the. Could you tell me what that is? Actually?
Yeah. So it's just a seal, what we call a security seal, and it's much easier with a pair of pliers
All right.
to break the seal.
And that shows that the machine has not been tampered with to this point. Okay.
Now, if we know that we're going to go ahead and get after it now, so I've got both. You have both the physical lock, the key lock, and then the seal.
Okay.
Here, kind of a dual
Your
thing.
duplicate. Okay.
So you pull that,
Okay.
and then
Oh, and there's our drive with all
there's
the
the
data.
drive, and that's where all your votes are.
Okay.
Right there. So.
I think your password. Here's what you get.
So I
42,000.
generated zero requirements. There's nothing loaded into this. The data for known outcomes will come out of those drives and we'll start doing the comparison.
Okay.
Is that all? 31,000 early voting?
Yep.
It seems like we've been through that this week in this office.
There's 100,000 returned. That doesn't include the early voting, does it?
That is not.
So there's 131,000 people already voted.
Out of 300,000.
Spoiled?
Just shy.
Is that spoiled? Is that they tore up or something?
Or they needed
Not
a new
signed?
value. No, that's different than not signing. But that's in the next one down. Is
Well,
the,
here's the party affiliation. 43,458 Democrats asked for a ballot, right? You know what this is? The ballot request?
Yep, that's correct.
73,683 Republicans asked for a ballot. 61,000 unaffiliated.
And that's just the absentee ballot?
Just the requested absentee ballot. And then there's,
Is that on our website?
it's on this website.
it's not out on the main.
You have to go through this portal. You have to go through this portal.
Some of it we have out on there, but not all these breakdowns.
And then this is the age, what age people are asking for ballots, right?
Yeah.
I think the high school's done a marvelous job of collecting votes, registrations.
Yeah, the vote group.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this is a little different. You got 100,000.
Okay.
And you get
We have the.
99,000. Anyway, yeah, this is the,
Oh, yeah,
on the
that's-
portal, you can just get the Chelsea, that you can get back.
So, yeah, for the candidates and everyone, and so what we have now, so James has completed the process. He's uploaded the results, so we have, we can pick different races because there's a lot of content on this ballot. We have the results here. So let's see, what precinct? I should know right where the precinct number is. What precinct am I on? James?
That's cumulative.
Oh, cumulative, okay. So we have these results. We're sitting here pre-printed, right? We haven't printed out any results. These are the predetermined results, so we can compare and make sure that the votes that we expected, so that were just run, equal the votes here. So, for example, 120 votes for, I'll just read them off here. You can look at the screen. 120 votes for Joe Biden, 106 votes for Don Blankenship, 113 votes for Rocky de la Fuente, 117 votes for Joe Jorgensen, 125 votes for Brock Pierce, 131 votes for Donald J. Trump, 137 votes for Kanye West. And so that should match here. And if you want to go through, we also have on here, and I think this is worth noting, especially for candidates who haven't seen this process before, we also track, these won't show up on the results on election night, but we retain them and have them, is we test for undervotes and overvotes. An undervote is when someone doesn't mark the contest, so there's no vote in it. So in this case, it's 94 undervotes. I have 94 here, or 47 overvotes. This means someone voted for more than the eligible number of candidates. So if someone voted for 2 candidates. Typically, we don't see a large volume of overvotes, something we do monitor. Undervotes in a high ticket contest, not a very small number, but as you go down the ballot, the number of undervotes typically rises.
People don't know who they are.
Don't know who they are, don't want to take the time, whatever the various reasons are, but we'll see that. But there's, if anyone wants, these are all the same copies, right, James?
Correct.
Yeah. You can see a copy of the results, and we can click through and see any, if you want to compare to any specific race.
22?
Sure. District 22. So here's District 22.
Gave him a little bigger margin this time.
We just do an algorithm that helps us determine how many votes we're supposed to mark.
And these are supposed to all be the same, because this was
Yes,
predetermined.
they should all be the same. If you see any variances, please point them out. So what page 8 is where District 22 is.
I don't like that algorithm.
Like I said, these are not actual votes cast. These are merely a test set. So which one do you want to? Yeah, so the assignment of votes on these, just like what Rod was just mentioning, these are random.
So these are just ones that were or just ballots that were.
We use it because there's so many different arrangements of the ballot. We go through and the computer helps us because some races have more candidates than others, right? So don't worry. The numbers themselves mean nothing. They absolutely mean nothing. But what does matter is that the numbers on your paper match the numbers that we see on the screen.
Okay.
That's what we're testing here, is because this is ran separately to make sure that the programming is accurate.